Okay, so last time we met, we identified kind of the current reality of your room and came up with that goal. You said you guys are working on theme development, and right now they're at about 50%, and we're trying to get them to 85 by their unit test, which is in another week. So the purpose of kind of this section is going to be identifying and trying to get to that goal, the actual strategy we're going to use to make sure that your kids are achieving that goal. We want to look at kind of, as the teacher, what can you do, and what exactly specifically do the students, what do they need to do? And one of the ways we do that is by creating checklists, which really worked for this as well, because you identified that as something you wanted to do for getting on to that 85% was doing the checklist. So we kind of want to come up with a checklist for you and for your students. And we kind of keep those pretty short, like 5 to 9 items, making sure they're very clear and focused. So, and that they, make sense for what it is we want to do. So making sure they connect to theme development and ensuring that they're going to get to that 85%. So what I've done since we talked last is I've created kind of a sample checklist, one for you as you're creating a checklist, and for the students to use during the assignment. So what I want to do with you is kind of go through this and make sure that it fulfills these requirements, and here's a copy of that, of what a checklist should be, and that it makes sure that it helps you get to that 85% both for you and for the students. So we're just going to kind of go through this, check and make sure that it's clear and concise and makes sense. And if there's any changes we need to make, I'll let you make those as we go through. Is that good?
Yes.
All right. So the first checklist that I did is one for you as the teacher. Okay, so this is kind of your checklist of how they're going to get to 85%. So we'll just go through each item and you can let me know if it's clear. So in starting off, we've got identifying the weaknesses of the students, which we already did. We did that in our last meeting. So kind of the next step in that is developing the actual checklist for peer review and theme development. Is that clear?
Yes,
and what we need to
clear.
do there? Okay, and that's obviously what we'll be doing today, so we can check that off. Next, what you'll need to do is choose a modeling approach. Do you know what modeling approaches are?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Dang, you're supposed to say no. Do you know what any modeling approaches?
No.
Okay, and that's cool. We're gonna go over some of those, and that's part of one of the goals of this today. So I think with that, dang it, hold on. Ah!
I didn't know.
No, not that part, not that part. All right, so the next one is choose a modeling approach.
What do you mean by a modeling approach?
A modeling approach is a way, essentially, for whatever strategy it is to be modeled in the classroom. And there's several different ways that you can do that. And that's one of the goals for today is deciding on that. So do we need to kind of clarify that within the checklist?
I would
Okay.
definitely clarify what you mean when you refer to a
Right,
modeling approach,
okay.
because that's really vague.
Okay, gotcha. So choose a modeling approach for teacher to see with the strategy. Okay, so kind of clarifying, you mean like what you need to do with that.
What
Okay,
I need to do.
gotcha. Okay, cool. I like that. All right, so the next one is model the strategy. Does that make sense there?
Can you clarify?
Yeah,
a
sure.
little
So
bit?
once we've chosen the modeling strategy, that's when we'll actually do it. So like, depending on the strategy we choose, that's when we'll actually implement it, either together or separately.
Okay.
So clarify that one as well.
Yes,
Okay.
maybe like implement.
Model strategy with teacher and coach. Okay, cool. All right, so the next one is review the results of modeling and make any necessary changes. Good?
Yes.
Cool. All right, and then the last step that I have is teacher implements practice individually and assesses the results.
How would we know if a student gets that and achieves the results that we want?
Okay, as in with
Yeah.
your goal of
With my
85%.
goal of 85%.
Well, how do you, so they're doing argumentative writing, you said. How do you normally assess that?
With a rubric.
Okay, what kind of rubric have?
They're graded on a 1, 2, 3, or 4,
Okay.
and passing grade is at least a 3.
Okay,
So
so
you have 3 to get a passing grade.
okay, cool. So so as you said, you want that 85% to be that they've mastered it. So I would think what you would do with that is do your usual assessment of 1, 2, 3s, and 4s. And then what you'd want to look at is what percent are getting 3s and 4s.
Okay.
So we can clarify that. And then is there anything else you want to add?
We probably should add another step. Like
Okay.
if we do not achieve the goal of 85%,
Okay.
if I don't get that goal in my classroom, that we can go back and reteach.
Okay, kind of like a
And
repeat
reassess,
as
yeah.
needed until goal met. Okay, so let me fix this first one. Implements practice individually. Results by rubric, and then you want to add a step of repeat until goal met. Okay, cool. All right, any other changes? Sound good?
I think it sounds good.
Awesome. All right, so again, that's the checklist that'll be for you.
Okay.
Okay? That was pretty funny. Okay, so for this checklist, this is going to be specifically for the student that they'll have as they're doing the assignment. For this theme development, you mentioned a couple things you want them to be able to do in terms of these steps. And I think I've got them all that you wanted. So first, create a summary of the events of the text and its conflicts or character motivations.
Yes.
Okay. Then they're identifying a lesson that is a result of the summary and kind of put in parentheses, aka the theme.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Create a timeline that shows the events that are connected to the identified theme. Does that make sense in terms of like they're gonna do the summary, then they're gonna find the theme, and then create based on that theme, take those events.
That go with it.
Right. Do you think that makes sense for
I
them?
do.
Okay, cool. Then after they've done that, they'll find explicit evidence, because I know you mentioned that, for each event on the timeline they've created.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then the next part, with a partner, analyze the evidence in its support of the theme. Does that make sense?
I'm afraid they might not understand exactly what I mean by analyze.
Okay. You've talked about analyzing evidence, right?
Yes, we've talked about it, but they haven't put it in their notes.
Okay, so they know it, but they may want something to refer back to type of thing.
I want clarification.
Okay, cool. Actually, that was something I kind of thought about. I just wasn't sure, and I did find kind of another mini checklist that just has, does the evidence relate? Does it cover all the parts? Does it represent that? And that can just be a quick one connected to that. So maybe we kind of just add using
the
the
checklist.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
To
Right.
look at your
Right.
evidence, yeah.
Gotcha. All right. So analyze evidence using. Okay. All right. I'll give that to you so you can have that copy. And I'll get you a copy of this as well. All right. So they found the evidence for it. Then with their partner, because you wanted to have that social element, that's where they're analyzing that evidence using that checklist to make sure it fits. Okay. And then the last segment, write an argumentative paragraph analyzing the development of the identified theme. So would that be the last step? Do you think they'll kind of get what to do with that?
I think so, but I think it might be more clear if they understand to use the rubric.
Oh,
to do
okay.
that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
That they might ask. All right. Yeah, because you did say that they had the 1,
We
2,
use
3,
the
4 rubric.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they know exactly what I'm looking for.
Right,
So
okay.
3 or 4.
Right. Yeah, you did mention with the original lesson that like they knew about the argumentative but weren't totally sure what ought to put with it, and having that might clarify that a little bit. All right. So overall, they're going to create the summary, then choose the theme, then based on all the events, kind of narrow that down to the events that fit the theme, then find the evidence, then with the partner, analyze it using that checklist,
Yes.
and then with the rubric, write that argumentative paragraph.
Yes.
Do you think this makes it clear what they'll need to do at the end? Like, will they need another step once they've written the argumentative paragraph? What should they do with it after? To get, because we had up here, they're assessing the results, or you're assessing the results. So do they turn in their argumentative paragraph in a particular place or anything, or do they know that? Like, does that need to be on the checklist or
We'll probably
anything?
through Google Classroom.
Okay.
I'll
all right.
have a
So they they know
assignment
that
set up.
already.
Yeah, they already know.
Okay, they're
Yeah.
used to that. All right, cool. All right, so take a second, look over both of those just one more time, and let me know if there's any other changes or anything that needs to be clarified, but that they can follow, pretty naturally here, then here, then here, then here.
I think it looks fun. I think they'll be able to get it.
Awesome. All right, so once we've now that we've decided on the checklist for you, the checklist for them, the next step kind of in this process is deciding on the co-teaching or the modeling. Co-teaching is one of them that you can do. The modeling approach, like you asked her about earlier. So there's essentially about 5 different ones. Like you can do where I come in and teach the lesson with students, and kind of I'm leading that. We can do it where I'm leading the lesson, but there aren't students, to where like you're in the audience, and that kind of gives you the opportunity to stop at any moment without it being a live session and ask questions. We can also do co-teaching, where you and I do it together, and that's especially helpful if if you want to see it kind of in practice and without if like only I need to focus on a certain part, because like you said, they've done checklists before, and like they've done this process before, where if you just need kind of the specific how to use a checklist part. You can also do a revisit if you want to visit another classroom with. There are some teachers that do checklists pretty well, or there's just watching a video. So which one of those do you think is going to be best for your kids and what they know already?
I like the co-teaching aspect of it.
Okay, cool. So with that, essentially what we'll do next is kind of plan out with your lesson how dividing that up between what will you lead, what will I lead, what will we lead together. And you said you guys have finished this text already, and they've got a good grasp on the evidence in the text. So I think it would make sense for you to lead that part of the review of the text. But then once they get to the assignment, kind of you going over here's what your expectations of the assignment. But then I can handle the specific going over how to do a checklist, since that's the part there isn't a lot of experience with, and I can just kind of jump in a few times just to explain, all right, here's how to go through the checklist. Does that sound okay?
Yes.
All right. So then them actually working on it. And so how do you want, during them actually working on the assignment, what do you want my responsibility to be? Do you want me to just kind of hang back, or is both to circulate together?
I think circulating together
Okay.
would be helpful.
All right.
In case they're unsure of something that has to do with the checklist.
Okay,
No,
cool.
I think it's been clarified.
Okay. But just in case from on their end, sure. Awesome. Yeah, good idea. And then so after they complete the work session, what do they do next?
They would share their findings.
Okay. And are they
Class,
sharing
yeah.
with the class? Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a whole group thing. So that can be something, again, that you're kind of leading there. And I think at that point, because at that point the lesson's almost over, so I can still stay to the end, or since the kind of checklist portion is done, I can either, and we can kind of have a signal for this, I can either go ahead and leave at that point, or go ahead and just stay to the rest, since there's only at that point only about 5-10 minutes left anyway. And so we can kind of decide that in the moment, in your comfortability, or if they have any more questions about the checklist. But something we should do in terms of this plan with the co-teaching is decide on a time for us to meet back. Well, I guess technically first we need to decide when we want to do this co-teaching. So today's Thursday. So when are they going to be working on this assignment? Tomorrow, okay. So yeah, tomorrow works for me. So shall we, and you said you're mostly worried about this with which block? Second block. Okay, so yeah, so we can do this tomorrow during second block. Once in deciding when we want to kind of look and talk about it, do you want to meet, when is your planning?
12 to 1.
Okay, so during third block. Okay, well, perfect. That'll be like right after. Okay, so then let's plan that we'll meet together back here during third block and kind of break it down and see, like back on the checklist, I had to find it, reviewing those results and making any necessary changes and see where to go from there. Sound good?
That's awesome.
All right, sounds good. All right, so with that modeling, with that co-teaching strategy, with the checklist, I think it went really well. What were some of the things that you think went well?
I noticed they were more on task.
Okay.
They seemed to be more prepared to complete the activity.
So what are some of the things, I know you said you had them do like a self-reflection at the end. What were some of the things they said about that and the activity in general?
It seemed to help them.
Okay.
They were a little confused on the amount of checklists they have, like which ones to use when.
Oh, okay.
They're kind of overwhelmed by the decision
Oh,
to
okay.
use certain ones at certain times.
Okay. So do you think for next time that they might would it be more helpful to them, do you think, to have, because we had one checklist and two rubrics, to put it like on the same page maybe?
It might be too small if we're on the same page.
Okay.
It might be better to edit or their checklist
Okay.
and label the rubrics and the checklist specifically. Like use rubric 1 for this step
Oh, okay, awesome.
and
Yeah.
rubric 2 for this step.
Oh yeah, sweet. We can do that. All right. So we had the analyze the evidence one. So I say what checklist with that number. With the rubric for the argumentative with that, and then this is kind of checklist 1 overall to use. Okay, yeah, sure. We can easily make that make those changes. So since it seemed like overall though the checklist seemed to work, they did some mastery. When you did the results, it was 50% originally. What was it when you looked at that?
70.
Wow, that's awesome. So that's a big
It definitely
jump.
helped. I think the social aspect probably helped a lot. That big jump.
Yeah, kind of
Helped.
harnessing that since they're talking about it together for sure. And especially, you're having them writing it together in a sense too. So that absolutely helped. So what changes? So we're at 70% now currently. You're at 70%. Our goal is still 85.
Yes.
So what do you think in this part of the checklist? So we're want to repeat any steps until we're meeting that goal. So what do you want to try next? Do you want to continue with the checklist idea?
Yes, I do like the checklist.
Okay. What changes do you want to?
I do like the peer aspect.
Okay.
I think that helped it go from 50 to 70.
Mm-hmm.
I might want to switch step 1 through 4
Okay.
and let that be the social aspect,
Okay.
and then let the writing be individual.
Okay, so kind of where they're summarizing, they're linking the events to the theme, have them decide on that together, but then do the writing separate.
Yeah.
Okay, so analyzing, so using basically the moments where they're doing the rubric and the checklist, doing that separate.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, we can absolutely try that. I think that'd be a great idea, especially since you've definitely seen with the partner that it's jumped a lot with some of that clarification, but kind of being able to assess individually more clearly what they can do. And you're still going to use the same rubric and the same checklist.
Yes.
All right. So kind of next in this step, what we kind of need to decide next is a time for you, because we did the coaching part together. And I think we got a good grasp on how to go through the checklist now. You're able to jump in really easily with that. So the next thing is to decide, because you guys this is still your argumentative writing unit, so you're going to be doing this again, is what day you want to plan for you to kind of do the whole checklist again with those changes we've made. Kind of what day you're planning to do that next, and then if you want me to come in and see it, or if you just want to video it and we can discuss it later. So when are you first? I guess is when will you be doing this activity again?
Early next week, Monday, Tuesday.
Monday, Tuesday. Okay. And do you want for me to come in and just observe, or do you want to just I can send you with the video camera, and you can just video, and then we can meet up during your planning again if that works and discuss it and break it down?
I think the video.
Okay, try the video this time. Awesome. Video, and then we'll meet during third planning. All right. That sounds good. They have made some awesome progress, just kind of in this one strategy. So next time, once we kind of break it down and see, especially if they reach that 85% goal, we can kind of talk about then what to do next. If there's another strategy you want to try next, but I think this seems to work really well for them. That's super exciting. So definitely something to add, keep in my playbook and add to yours. Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.